So today we're going to review The Incredibles and The Incredibles 2 as our new release and our classic movie. So, Ivan, tell us a little bit about the first Incredibles movie from 2004.
The Incredibles is a Pixar movie from 2004 that basically tells a story about a family that has superpowers living in a world where powers are kind of like not banished, but like they're pretty much like, well, actually, yeah, banished pretty much. They're
It's
banned.
like the Witness production program, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it extremely is. And then the dad, Mr. Incredible, who has really strong powers, gets called on assignment outside of the country and basically gets trapped in that country. And so the mom has to go investigate as well, and then the kids go, and it's basically one big Pixar family movie that
Awesome.
I think is just fine.
Okay, we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, The Incredibles I think was very groundbreaking. It was directed by Brad Bird. He also did the sequel, and I think without getting too much into my opinion yet, I will just say this movie definitely for Pixar was a pretty big deal because it was really the first movie they had done that had featured humans prominently and was sort of on this level of scale because they hadn't done anything this big before. So definitely a big movie for the time back in 2004. So now I'm going to talk about The Incredibles 2, which just came out last month. It is the sequel to The Incredibles, which came out 14 years later. So it was a widely anticipated sequel. I know I've been waiting years for it. Um,
It just came around for me. I don't care.
yeah. So anyway, but The Incredibles 2 basically tells the story of like directly after the first Incredibles movie, which is a little strange because it's been 14 years, and the fact that it's like a direct sequel is kind of amazing that they didn't do like some kind of time jump. But basically, it's about the family, and even though they've fully come into their superpowers and they're starting to work together, they're still not really allowed to be superheroes yet, like and help the public because superheroes are still illegal. So because of that, the mom, Elastigirl, she gets the chance to start doing superhero work on her own, so that she gets the opportunity to basically advertise that like superheroes can be awesome and do good things for society. And then she does these things. Meanwhile, she's like trying to stop this villain that's very mysterious, even though it's pretty obvious who it is throughout most of it. Um, Called the Screenslaver. And meanwhile, Mr. Incredible has to stay at home with the kids and deal with their problems. So you get sort of this cool superhero story alongside this more mundane family sitcom-ish sort of scenario. So definitely an interesting sequel, and we'll get around to comparing them. So Ivan, go ahead and tell me first your opinion on the first Incredibles movie. Give me your review essentially of that movie.
It's fine. It's not awesome. It's not amazing, but it's not bad or terrible or okay. It's fine. It's just a fine movie. I just think like it has moments in it that I think are great. Like for example, like the character of Dash, like him and like putting the thumbtack on his teacher's like seat. It's small, but it's just like a moment that helps you know what his character is all about. And then you have the moments like where they're in the plane together. These small little moments that I don't think encompass the entire movie.
The movie does have a lot of really good just moments, um,
It has
especially
good moments
especially
as a
early
whole.
on.
I just don't think it's like a great, amazing movie like people say it is.
Well, I loved it as a kid. I saw it in theaters as a kid, and I mean, I've loved it for years. But I will say, rewatching it right before I saw the second one, I did notice the pacing's a little strange in some places. It's very slow throughout the like first two acts, and then the third act, everything just goes really fast. It sort of felt like they crammed everything into the last minute. And even though I think that the villain Syndrome, I think he's a like fairly well developed character, and I think he's really good in the movie. Um, I do feel like some of his I don't know if it's his reveal or sort of his plan, but it all feels very fast paced, like kind of like it doesn't always flow the best in terms of like the pacing for the movie because, like I said, that first half to first two thirds is very slow, and I think it allows for a lot of good moments and a lot of good chemistry between the characters, but it definitely, like you said, it's not a perfect movie. I don't think. I mean, it's a little overhyped, I suppose, but I still think for what it was back in 2004, like I still think it's a pretty awesome movie, to be honest. So now let's get to The Incredibles 2. So
The
Ivan, you told me you did not like this one, which is
I just
interesting.
I just didn't like it. It
So
was just
tell me why you
basically
didn't like it.
Well, first things first, it's before you even go into the movie, you know people are hyped for this movie.
For sure.
And one of my worries was that when I saw the trailer, it was gonna do a lot of like things that were kind of the same, kind of different, but more over the same. And I just feel like people like this movie because of nostalgia. And I rarely ever use that as an argument for something because there are nostalgic movies that come back that I think do like good things. But in the case of Pixar, I think they're a studio that overly relies on nostalgia for some of their movies that are coming out, and I feel like The Incredibles 2 was one of those movies that was overly reliant on this. Like if you look at the first Incredibles, there's a scene like for example, there's a scene where Mr. Incredible stops the train in the first movie. There's also a scene where Miss Incredible stops the train in the second movie. Dad leaves and mom takes care of the kids in the first movie. Mom leaves and dad takes care of the kids in the second movie. It's just all these repeats, but you just switch the gender roles pretty much. And people are like, "Oh, I remember that. I remember that too." And it's just kind of like a back-to-back beat of it for the sake of nostalgia. And also, I feel like the villain in this new Incredibles movie was really, really, really poor developed. Like one of the worst poorly developed villains, one of the most predictable villains I've ever seen in a movie. Like not even like in any anime movie, but any movie like period to the test of time.
Okay.
Yeah,
You know, it's interesting that you say that because the villain, I will say, is pretty predictable, but I found her more to just be serviceable. I didn't really think she was bad. I didn't think she was like poorly developed. I just thought that she was sort of like some of the Marvel villains are, where it's just kind of cut and paste. You do get the motivation, but you don't necessarily get a good connection there. But I don't know. I didn't think she was bad. I just thought she was fine. As for the rest of the movie, though, I'll be honest. I disagree with you on the movie, and not in an intensely like, "Oh my god, I loved it," but just in a like, I liked the movie. I didn't really feel like it was like that reliant on nostalgia. I mean, I suppose that to a degree it was. Like, I mean, obviously, the nostalgia was the draw to the movie. I can totally admit that. Um, but I felt like, honestly, the fact that they kind of repeated elements of the plot from the first one, I didn't love, but I felt like it worked because the thing is we don't really see that much of Elastigirl. I mean, we do, but she's not as well developed in the first movie as like she gets a lot more development in this movie. And the first one focused so heavily on Mr. Incredible that I feel like to a degree the rest of the family was sort of on the sidelines for at least the first half of that movie. And this one, it felt like there was a lot more even screen time. And I don't know. I like the world that they've set up in these movies, and I was happy to see more of it. Um, Also, I mean, this isn't from a story perspective, but the animation has gotten even better since the original. I
this is
think
the thing. This is the thing. Pixar has like one of the best animation teams for anyone making any form of media, but their stories suck.
I
They're
don't
not
think
good.
I don't think all their stories suck. I mean, personally, I thought and this is just my opinion, but of the Pixar movies I've seen in the last 8 or 9 years, I personally thought this was one of the better ones since Toy Story 3.
It was the
Um,
same thing you saw in the first Incredibles.
I mean, but not. I mean, it wasn't the same thing. It was there was a role reversal, but the plot is totally different. I mean, we got to see like Jack's powers develop. That's like not even really focused on it at all in the first movie. They don't really deal too much with the plots of the kids in the first movie. Like this one definitely had just I think it had a different plot and it went in a different direction. But I can see definitely where there are some huge similarities. Um, like I can definitely like agree with you. And I remember when I saw the trailer, I remember thinking, oh god, this is going to be just like the first one. And I mean, yeah, there are some elements of that, sort of the retired hero getting to come out of retirement and having fun doing basically what they love doing, and the other parent being left at home. But the thing was is that in the first Incredibles movie, there wasn't really that much focus on Elastigirl being home alone with the kids. Like that wasn't really a part of the plot. The first movie had really just one main plot, and then I guess it sort of had her with the kids going to the island. But I don't know. I mean, I felt like
there's still that like element of like togetherness though, like I think at least that's both in the first and second one, except the roles are reversed.
yeah, and I mean, I agree that they did do the role reversal thing. And honestly, I think what a lot of people probably wanted out of this movie, a lot of people who hated this movie, because there were quite a few people that hated this movie, and I remember when it first came out being like, do I even want to go see this? Because it's getting some like bad reviews. But I really didn't agree with them too much. Some of the complaints, though, I guess, were that I think some people just wanted to see the family fighting together the whole time and not have this, oh, one goes off and all that. And honestly, if they do a third one, which I mean, who knows, it could take years. But if they do a third one, they need to like.
It'll come out in 20 years.
Yeah, I know. The kids will be the same age as the parents from the first one. But
maybe one of them will be dead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The parents in this movie, they sounded so much older. Like their voices just sounded so much older.
Well, they got the same actors and actresses too.
Yeah, I mean, and they're the same actors. Yeah, I mean, they're the same people, but man, they sounded you could tell it. It's funny because it's supposed to take place directly after, but their voices just sound like Mr. Incredible sounds kind of like an old man, and then Elastigirl sounds like an old lady who's talking like this a little bit.
I know. What was that? Like,
I don't know. I guess she's like maybe she wears dentures now or something.
She like stretched out her teeth.
I don't know. I mean, it happens, man. It was funny because and I think Dash was an entirely different voice actor, but he sounded pretty much the same as the first kid.
Okay, I gotta talk about Violet though.
Okay, talk about Violet.
Violet sucks. She doesn't
in both movies. In both movies, or just the first?
She's useless. If you think about it, like when she grows up, her only power is turning invisible.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't think she's useless, but I think that they underutilize her in the movies.
What do you mean? There's useless.
I mean, being invisible could be like a good power for like stealth and stuff, but the problem is they're not spy movies; they're superhero movies.
That's the thing. I think for me, I think the only people that they did powers on that were good were Dash, Mr. Incredible, and Mrs. Incredible, and Elastigirl.
I don't know. I think
even know what. Why don't they say Miss Incredible?
I mean, I thought they called her that in the first one, but they called her Elastigirl the whole time in the second one, so I don't know.
I don't know. Anyway, but they're the only thing that I have that I think that have powers that are useful. Jack, no.
Jack's powers are so crazy though.
I feel like they just didn't care. They were just like, ugh, I can't think of anything. Just give him everything.
I mean, he's just the wild card character. It's kind of fun to have that character, but the problem is because he's a baby, he has no real development.
Boring, though.
What's that?
They were just boring scenes. And
what scenes?
Every scene with him, where he's showing off his powers.
Really? Ivan, do you hate babies, Ivan? Are you a baby hater?
No, I'm not. Well, we'll have to deal with that screen right there. But anyway,
technical difficulties.
Oh well, you can still kind of see it right there. But Jack, when you first see his powers, it's like, okay, I understand his powers. You see, you're visualizing information that he's showing the first time it happens. Then it happens again, and you're like, oh, okay. And then you realize literally every scene with him is just a showcase for his powers.
Yeah, I do think they should have settled on
That's why I found it really monotonous and boring.
Yeah, it might have been better to have them consistently focus on maybe just giving him a few powers, maybe up to 5. But there's 17 of them, and it's so random, and they just come out of nowhere. I don't know though. I thought it worked for the comedy of the movie. I mean, it's a family movie, so there's so much of the humor is going to just be kind of cutesy. Oh, there's a baby, kind of I mean.
Yeah.
And I thought there was some clever humor in it too. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Personally, I thought that the first movie was written a lot better than the second one was, but I thought that the second one was, I guess you could say, directed better. Like I thought that the action sequences were a lot more fluid, and in modern day, I think they look a lot better than some of the action is a little stilted in the first movie. Not to say it's bad. I mean, it's great for 2004, but Pixar could only do so much with like an action movie that's fully
Yeah,
animated.
I don't know. I just didn't like it. Like, it's out of like all the movies, like out of all the Pixar movies that came out, I think Inside Out is like the best one from like the past like decade.
Yeah, I guess I would say Inside Out was probably better than this one, but I'd probably say this was my second favorite in like the last decade. Just because I don't know, this one I mean, you could say it was not the best or not as good as the first one, but I don't know. I didn't feel like this didn't feel as unnecessary to me as like Finding Dory did at any of the Cars sequels and
It's
Monsters
not as bad as
University.
Finding Dory. I'll say
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I didn't find Finding Dory to be
It's
bad. I just thought it was really underwhelming. But I think I don't know. Pixar has just been really underwhelming the last decade, which is
they've been underwhelmed.
sad
Yeah,
because they were so great for their first like 15 years, and really everything after Toy Story 3, I thought. And I mean, Toy Story 3, I really liked, but yeah, it was kind of a rehash of the second one. So I mean, really, since like Up and Toy Story 3, we haven't really had like very many like really good Pixar movies. Um, like that whole era was really good, and then it seems like everything afterwards was kind of an afterthought
well,
because
I'm for sure that they're like when they were starting out the studios, they were discussing all these like first
all of them
brainstorm ideas.
through Wally. Wally was the last one that they like planned.
Yeah, and then they realized, oh, we can still make more stuff. And so I think they got like I'm assuming they got like a whole new team to make all this stuff with just the
Yeah,
original
I'm sure it's
directors.
different people now, and I mean it's not the same as it once was, but I don't know. I feel like Pixar has just most of their movies aren't even really that bad. Like I wouldn't really consider any of, and I'll be honest, I haven't seen all of them, I guess, but of all the Pixar movies I've seen, the only bad one, like objectively like a bad movie, like one that could be considered like for our garbage category. The only one I'd say was Cars 2. Everything else was just like, you know, mediocre or less than mediocre in terms
I
of the
haven't even
last.
seen I haven't even seen Cars 2, and I don't want to.
No, it's basically a direct to DVD sequel that got released in theaters,
Because
essentially.
Cars,
I heard Cars 3 was better, but I didn't see it, so I don't know. I don't
I
really
don't
care.
want to.
Cars is for little kids. I'm sorry, but
It is.
and you can like it. Anyone can like it if they want, but it's for little kids. Like, see the merchandise. It's more for little kids than even some of the other Pixar movies were. So,
All
Ivan, how
right.
much time we got right now?
We got 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Well,
Okay. Any
yeah.
last thoughts on either of the Incredibles movies, the first one or the second one? I
Um,
know I said that the first one I sort of felt like had some pacing issues, but ultimately was written really well, and I
even
think
though
was well acted.
this is gonna sound weird coming from me. Even though I said I don't like it, I still would recommend it.
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone who wants to see like I think the evolution of animated films, I think The Incredibles is definitely a must see. I mean, because look at all that it did before other movies were doing that. I mean, um, and Brad Bird just has done a lot of revolutionary movies for
Yeah.
animation. So yeah, I mean, I think the first movie absolutely is a classic. Whether you can whether you can acknowledge it's got its problems or not,
I
I've
mean,
talked to some people who think it's like a pure masterpiece, and I wouldn't go that far, but
uh,
I think it's a good movie. I think it's really awesome.
where's the
Um,
thing? It's still remembered.
Definitely. So, any other thoughts?
Oh, on remembering it. I don't remember a lot from Incredibles 2, but I remember a lot from The Incredibles. I'll say that.
Well, how many times have you seen the first Incredibles, though?
2 or 3 times.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, older movies are a little bit more memorable usually than something you just saw. But I will say that the first Incredibles. I mean, partly because it was the only one for so long. Of course, it's gonna stick out more. But I do think that its story and its action set pieces are definitely more memorable. Even though I think the action is better in the new one. Like I think that it looks a lot better because the first one there are just some moments where you're like that animation looks a little choppy, but hey, it was a while ago, so can't be too mad. It was
Yeah.
it was the best at one time. So, any other thoughts though on either of those two movies? Because I feel like we talked pretty extensively about both of them.
No, not at all. I'm pretty much done with The Incredibles
All right, so Ivan,
until
what
another
would
20 years later.
until 2032 or something. So Ivan, what would you rate Incredibles 2?
I would rate The Incredibles 2 a 4 out of 10.
4 out of 10. Okay.
Yeah.
I would rate Incredibles 2 6 out of 10
Okay.
because I genuinely liked it, but I mean I'm not gonna really remember it extensively like the first one. And Ivan, what would you give the original The Incredibles?
The Incredibles original, I would give it 6.
Okay, and I would give it an 8 out of 10. So, in our first versus video of all time, I would say that The Incredibles from 2004 was the winner, given that we
Yes.
both gave it higher ratings than the second one. So, yay,
Yay.
Incredibles! Yay,
Woo!
cool,
Brad Bird, what a
awesome.
legend.
What a legend.
Legend.